So I got in touch with the archivist there in Camden, South Carolina. And I said, I'd also like to look at newspapers. When you do my kind of a narrative history, you rely a lot on newspapers. They give you color, they give you detail. They're documents for a historian. And so I got in touch with the archivist and said, I'd really like to see the weekly newspaper. It came out twice a week, the Camden Chronicle. And she said, you mean the other newspaper, the Camden News? And I said, no, I'm not familiar with the Camden News. And she said, well, I think you want to look at the Buckley materials on the Camden News. She had not ever looked at the newspaper. It was on microfilm. It was published for 4 years. And everyone in town, because I interviewed people, knew the family had owned the newspaper, but nobody remembered what was in it. And I put it through those old microfilm machines, which I still love to use. I'm scrolling in the very first issue, and on page 3, in big black type, which I've reproduced in the book. You haven't seen the photos yet, I don't think.
No.
You'll see a picture of the invitation to the white citizens of Kershaw County, Campton's and Kershaw County. White citizens come to the meeting, to our Citizens Council meeting. And for those who follow this period in American history, the Citizens Council was the more sophisticated Ku Klux Klan. They were the ones who wore suits and ties, called them the Uptown Klan. And the Buckley family did not belong to the Citizens Council. They weren't members. Neither was their favorite senator, Strom Thurmond from South Carolina, a member of the Citizens Council, but they supported it. And this newspaper became the voice of massive resistance to the Supreme Court's decision in Brown desegregating schools. And the Buckley family was paying for it. And Bill's sister Priscilla, who was a famous editor, she was George Will's editor, Joan Didion's editor, Gary Wills's editor, John Leonard's editor, was the managing editor of that newspaper in Camden, and none of them knew it. No one in the North knew this. When you could read the Charleston Courier and see the Buckley family extolled for standing up for the South in this other newspaper they owned. It was not a secret. It was another of these conspiracies of silence. Only this one rebounds against them. Well, what made it interesting, Andrew, and I know this is why we're mentioning it, is the Buckleys could not have been more humane in the treatment of the help who worked for the family. Buckley Sr. paid for the college educations of the black family, the Allen family. I met one of the children whose father had been the gardener. And my wife and I talked to him for a couple of hours, and he told us he loved the Buckleys. Said they were the first white people in Camden, South Carolina, that made sure you got a paycheck even in the off season. They didn't cast you off. If they couldn't find it, because they would go back to Connecticut, they'd either take the help with them, find other jobs for them in South Carolina, and if they couldn't find jobs, they'd keep them on the retainer anyway. So it was the old style paternalism. That's why Bill Buckley and all these unsigned editorials in National Review, which I quote, which he defends the South in the most extreme terms. The idea of a Northern segregationist is mind-boggling to us. I don't think I ever saw the term till I used it in the book. That he was a Northern segregationist. He was a Northerner. It's like being a Copperhead during the Civil War. He was a Northerner who passionately supported the South's right to discriminate against black people, lawfully discriminate against them. So the father would pay for the black help, the young ones who were interested, who showed academic promise, to go to a historically black college or university. But he would have been first in line to stop the schools from being integrated. And you almost can't wrap your mind around it. To me, that was the single most challenging and narratively satisfying part of the story I told, was to try to, and I've talked to young people at Yale, I talked to students, include a number of black students. I said, what did you make of all this? They weren't shocked by any of it. Said, oh, it was just an old style paternalist. He actually thinks he knows black people better than Northern whites do, because he lived closer to them.